You know, on Thursday when I did my Patreon exclusive live stream, some of my Patreon subscribers hurt my feelings. They hurt my feelings. No, they told me, I had a couple guys, they said, Alan, it's about time for that new haircut, ain't it? Somebody guessed it right on the dot, man. He said, man, it look like you ain't had a haircut in about 4 or 5 weeks. Yep. It's been about 5 weeks. Yeah, my last haircut was about 5 weeks ago. So that's why my hair is looking like a mini afro. But good news. Today, I'm supposed to go get a haircut. Go to my barber today. Get a haircut. I actually don't like my hair, though, too short. I don't like it either one. I don't like my hair too short or too long. I like it kind of like right in the middle. Now, I don't like my hair too short. Like, if you look at old pictures of mine, there was a time I used to wear what was known as the bald fade. The bald fade. But in retrospect, my hair was too short. I didn't like my hair that short, where it looked like I was damn near bald-headed. Then I've had other past photos where my hair was longer than it is right now. My brother was actually the first one to encourage me to grow my hair out back around, I think, 2014, 2015. Because he was like, man, because my brother, he lost most of his hair. He's like, man, you should feel thankful that God has blessed you to still have hair in your mid-50s, man. You need to grow that shit out, man. You got a good grade of hair, man. Grow that shit out. So, yeah, there was at least a couple times my hair was like twice as long as it is right now. Anyway. Quick follow-up to my last video, which, interesting enough, my last video was a follow-up to the previous. Like, Thursday's video was a follow-up to Wednesday's video. And I'm going to spend at least 5, no more than 10 minutes doing a follow-up to the last video. I just want to reiterate one quick thing is that on this theme of, because I've heard a lot of guys over the years, mainly guys who favor the indirect approach, indirect verbal game. They're always trying to suggest that if you're too direct, you run a high risk of turning women off. Well, number one, two things. One, that's a misnomer. And I pointed this out in a Patreon exclusive video weeks ago. It's technically a misnomer for anybody to say, if you do this, you'll turn a woman off. Because in order to turn a woman off, that would suggest that she's already turned on. I know somebody just light bulb, somebody said, somebody went, damn, Alan, you're right. It's true. Like, for example, how can you turn a water faucet off if it's already off? How can you turn a TV off if it's already off? How can you turn a radio off if it's already off? There's a difference between turning a woman off and failing to turn a woman on. And I'm not going to go into detail because I already went into detail in one of my Patreon exclusive videos. But there's a big difference between those two. There's a difference between turning a woman off and failing to turn a woman on. A lot of people use those two interchangeably as if they're the same thing, but they're not. There's a difference between, say, being in a woman's company and she says, ooh, you got my pussy so wet. You got my pussy so wet. Damn, I want you to fuck me. And then you say ABC or XYZ, and all of a sudden she's like, oh, why did you say that? Oh, now my pussy done dried up. I don't want to fuck you no more. I don't want to fuck you no more. I was turned on 10 minutes ago, but now that you said such and such and such and such, I don't want to fuck you no more. That would be an example of turning a woman off. That would be an example of turning a woman off. If you got a woman in an aroused state and then you do something and or say something that makes her lose her aroused state, that makes her aroused state diminish, that's turning a woman off. That's the true definition of turning a woman off, is when you already got a woman aroused. Conversely, if you're in a woman's company and she's not aroused at all, and nothing you do or say is able to get her aroused, then that means you're failing to turn a woman on. You're failing to turn a woman on. And I would argue that in most instances with a woman that you've just met, most men are more guilty of failing to turn a woman on than they are guilty of turning off a woman who's already aroused. So keep that in mind. Also along the same lines, a lot of guys always try to make the argument that being direct puts you at more risk of turning women off or failing to turn women on. When the reality is, in my experience, and a lot of guys I know, and quite a few guys pointed this out in my comment section of my last video, I can only speak for myself. I'll speak for myself first. I can name more times when I felt like I missed out on the opportunity to have sex with a woman because of not being direct enough. Not being direct enough than because of being too direct. Matter of fact, if I'm being real, I honestly can't think of even one time when I could legitimately say, damn, I bet I could have fucked her if I wouldn't have been so direct. I can't think of a time. I honestly can't think of a time when I could say that, damn, I feel like if I had been more indirect with that woman, I would have got the pussy. No. There's never been a time when I felt like if I had been more beat around the bush or more vague and ambiguous, that I would have gotten the pussy from a woman. Now, as I mentioned in the last video, I can name times that I felt like if I would have been willing to lie, if I would have been willing to blatantly lie to a woman and mislead and manipulate a woman, I could have potentially gotten a pussy. But that's a different concept. That's somewhat of a different concept. So yeah, I can name situations where if I had been willing to lie and give a woman a misleading impression that I wanted long-term sex when I knew deep down I only wanted short-term sex, or that I would have been willing to give a woman a misleading impression that I wanted monogamous sex when I know deep down I wanted non-monogamous sex, that I probably could have got the pussy. So in that sense, yeah. But I'm talking about a situation, that would be more mode 3 behavior. But as far as mode 2, which is more along the lines of being beat around the bush or vague and ambiguous or just more subtle, I can't name a time when I genuinely feel like, damn, if I had been mode 2 instead of mode 1, I would have got the pussy. But I can name multiple times that I was mode 2 with a woman, and later on I said, damn, if I would have been mode 1, I give you a classic example where I almost missed out on some pussy. And y'all know what I'm about to say. I always refer to this verbal seduction story. Verbal seduction story number 1, my infamous triple date story. If you remember the first 75 minutes of that triple date, I was indirect. I was basically mode 2 with that chick. And you see how she treated me. She treated me like I was a beta male chump. She was talking to me and treating me like I was literally just like a beta male chump. And it wasn't until I first became mode 4 for a few seconds and then later became mode 1 when she ended up giving me the pussy. It wasn't until I became more direct when she ended up becoming highly feminine, obedient, and submissive towards me. But when I was being indirect, man, she was treating me like a chump. So anyway, I don't want to go into too much length on that, but yeah, man, I think a man puts himself at just as much, if not more risk by not being direct enough, particularly, and I emphasized this in the last video, particularly if his objective is short-term non-monogamous casual sex. Particularly if his objective is short-term non-monogamous casual sex. I can't tell you how many women have confirmed that for me over the years. I've had a lot of women. Most notably was the women in Los Angeles last year, when I was in Los Angeles last November. Yeah, a lot of women, man, have communicated to me that they would have potentially gave allowed a guy to have casual sex with them if that guy had been more bold and straightforwardly honest with them, been more direct, basically been more mode 1 with them. But because he was mode 2 or mode 3, they lost interest. They lost interest. I can't tell you how many, like women I went to college with would tell me that. When we would be talking about my book and stuff to do with mode 1, I've had a lot of women I went to college with, they'd be telling me about like friends of mine or frat brothers of mine. They would tell me, they say, you know your friend so-and-so, remember your friend so-and-so? I would be like, yeah. And they would say, I wanted to give him some pussy, but he wasn't mode 1. If he would have been mode 1, he would have got some pussy from me. But because he was mode 2 or mode 3, they would say either A, they didn't engage in sex with him, period, or at minimum, they didn't engage in casual sex with him. They might engage in like boyfriend-girlfriend sex with him, but they bypassed engaging in casual sex with him. Now, failure to be mode 1 will make you lose out on a lot of casual sex pussy. Believe that. Based on my experiences, observations, and conversations with women, a failure to be mode 1 will make you lose out on a lot of casual sex pussy. It'll make you lose out on a lot of casual sex pussy. Anyway, the purpose of my video, and this will be my last video for the month of June, and probably at least my next to last video before I go out of town. I'm going out of town Tuesday night. Somebody was asking me I've gotten this question before. I guess somebody talked about it on a live stream and somehow my name got brought up maybe. But anyway, somebody asked me, they said, Alan, I hear a lot of people on different podcasts talking about women that are in your league versus out of your league. In your league versus out of your league. And his follower went on to say that, Alan, I don't know if you know, but your name got brought up by a podcast. You got criticized because the podcast has said ARC, and I guess they named about 2 or 3 other names, said ARC is one of them guys that will try to encourage you to hook up with women that you're not attracted to, that you don't find physically attractive or sexually appealing. Number one, that's a lie. That's a lie. That's a lie. That's a lie. And I'm just going to reiterate that again. That's a lie. I did a video back in 2017, about 2 years ago, where I had to emphasize that. I'll say the guy's name. Mumia Obsidian Ali tried to suggest that one time when we were beefing back in 2017. He tried to say that I was telling men that they should hook up with women that they're not that they don't find physically attractive or sexual. I never told a man that, ever. I have never, ever told a man that they should pursue a woman that they are not physically attracted to or that they don't find sexually appealing. I've never told a man that. So if somebody said that recently and they said I said that, they are lying. I've never said that. What I have said to men is that if you pursue any woman and let her know you're attracted to her and you want to spend time with her, whether it's for long-term monogamous sex, long-term non-monogamous sex, short-term monogamous sex, or short-term non-monogamous sex, and she rejects you, then you need to leave that woman alone. That's what I've simply always said, is that if you express an interest in hooking up with a woman romantically or for strictly sexual purposes, and she rejects you, you need to leave her the fuck alone. Period. But I've never told guys you should pursue women that you don't find physically attractive or that you don't find sexually appealing. I would never tell a man that. So again, if somebody said that recently, they're lying. Now, going back to Obsidian for a second, I remember 2 years ago when we were beefing, Obsidian had said that something to the effect of, Alan, there's no point of you being a dating coach if you can't guarantee that you're going to help men hook up with women out of their league. He basically said, what's the point of paying a dating coach money if he can't guarantee you that you're going to hook up with women out of your league? And that's when I came back with a video. If I can find it, I'll put it in the comment section. But my response video to that was, I did a video called, I'm not a matchmaker and I'm not a miracle worker. I'm not a matchmaker, and I'm not a miracle worker. That's what a matchmaker does, more so than a dating coach. A matchmaker's job, that's what a matchmaker gets paid to do. A matchmaker gets paid to connect you with a woman that's that meets your criteria and your ideal preferences, that meets your criteria for companionship, for female companionship, and your ideal preferences. That's what a matchmaker does. That's what they get paid to do. So if you were to pay for the services of a professional matchmaker, yeah, it is their job to hook you up with somebody that you consider to be preferable. And if they can't, typically they'll either refund you all your money, or at minimum they'll refund you anywhere from 50 to 75% of your money if they fail to do that. That's the job of a matchmaker. I am not a matchmaker. I know people who are professional matchmakers, particularly a few women who are, but that's never been something I marketed myself as. I am not a matchmaker. So I don't have any obligation to hook a man up with somebody that's out of his league. That's not part of my job description. That is not part of my job description. So anybody who co-signs with the assertion that you shouldn't be a dating coach if you can't guarantee a man gonna hook up with women out of his league, I'll say everybody's entitled to their own opinions, but I would vehemently disagree with that opinion. That's bullshit. That's like saying nobody deserves to be paid as an NBA coach if they can't guarantee that their team is going to win an NBA championship. Or nobody deserves to be an NFL coach if they can't guarantee that their team is going to win a Super Bowl championship. Shit, there wouldn't be any coaches in the league if that was the truth. There wouldn't be any coaches in the league if that was the truth. There ain't no NBA coach that can guarantee that they're going to win. All they can do is do their best. But ain't no coach, including Bill Belichick. He's considered the best NFL coach in the league, but he can't guarantee that his team is going to win a Super Bowl championship every year. Matter of fact, just 2 years ago, they lost to the Philadelphia Eagles. Can't guarantee that shit. I would never try to guarantee a man that if he follows my advice, he's going to be guaranteed to hook up with a woman out of his league. That's bullshit. But here's a simple reality of both men and women. Here's a simple reality of both men and women. Speaking of criteria for companionship, romantic companionship, or strictly sexual companionship, and we all have preferences, man. Men and women. Any man or woman that says that they don't is a liar. Now, I don't really like to use the term league. I use it every now and then, but generally I don't like to suggest that any woman is out of a man's league per se. I simply say that all women are either going to be interested in spending time with you in a romantic or strictly sexual manner, or they're not. It's that simple for me. That's how I look at women, is women either being interested in spending time with you in a romantic or strictly sexual manner, or they're not. I think you should shoot your shot with any woman you're attracted to. And if you get rejected, you get rejected. I don't think you should ever reject yourself. That's one of my classic quotes. Never reject yourself. What does it mean to reject yourself? When you avoid approaching a woman at all because you're intimidated by her beauty, you're intimidated by her sex appeal, or you feel like she's out of your league. So you decide not to approach her at all, initiate a conversation with her at all. That means you're rejecting yourself. You're rejecting yourself. I don't believe you should ever reject yourself. If you're going to be rejected, let the woman reject you. Don't reject yourself. But we all, as men and women, we have preferences and criteria. And I'm going to go, for the remainder of the free portion, I'm going to just give an outline of the 7 major categories of criteria and preferences for both men and women. Main emphasis is going to be on women's preference for male companionship, but they all apply to men's preferences for women's companionship too. I'm going to give the general outline in this free portion, and I'm going to go into more elaborate detail on each category in my Patreon exclusive portion. And I think most of you know, but in case you don't, which is one reason I've earned a nickname by some of my followers as the Professor or Professor Currie, I actually used to teach. I actually taught a college level class called Dating for 21st Century Singles in 2009, 10 years ago, actually. Yep, I taught a class on a college campus called Dating for 21st Century Singles. Now, here's where I got to do a little ball rubbing or a little tooting on my horn. Yeah, I mentioned this a couple times before. I was the first person in the Indiana University system to ever get hired to teach a class that had to do with both dating and relationships and human sexuality that was not in possession of a PhD or a master's degree. First person in Indiana University history to teach a class related to dating and relationships and human sexuality that was not in possession of a PhD or a master's degree in psychology. Yep. First guy ever. That's my claim to fame within the Indiana University system. Yeah, I was the first guy ever to teach a guy with just a bachelor's degree. And even my bachelor's degree is not in psychology. I have a minor in psychology. One of my minors was in psychology, but my major was economics. Yeah. But the woman who hired me for the job, she told me that. Yeah, she said, you're the first person to ever teach a class related to dating, relationships, and human sexuality that didn't have a PhD or a master's degree in psychology. These are what I call the 7 general categories that will determine if a woman decides to spend time with you either in a romantic manner, and when I say romantic, I mean a combination of your sexual and non-sexual companionship, and there's usually some degree of emotional attachment involved. I call that romantic companionship. Or the opposite, or the other alternative would be strictly sexual companionship, or strictly non-sexual companionship. Strictly sexual, like a fuck buddy, or strictly non-sexual, like purely platonic friends. So here's criteria and preference category number 1 would be physical attractiveness and overall physical appearance, which can include a man's height, weight, the type of clothes he wears, his overall health and fitness, his grooming, and his personal hygiene. That's criteria number 1. And I'm going to have some more detailed commentary in the Patreon exclusive portion for that category. Criteria and preference category number 1. Criteria and ideal preference category number 2. Degree of physical and non-physical sex appeal. Your degree of physical and non-physical sex appeal, which includes characteristics such as how confident does this man present himself to be? How masculine does this man present himself to be? Is this man dominant? Does he appear to be a dominant alpha male? Or is he more of a passive, easy to manage, and highly compliant beta male? Would this man provide me with enjoyable and highly satisfying sexual companionship if I give him the opportunity to have sex with me? All of those characteristics contribute to a man's sex appeal. That's usually a criteria that's just as important, if not sometimes slightly more important than just simply your looks, particularly for casual sex. I've always said that. When it comes to short-term, non-monogamous casual sex, I would say of all these 7 categories, it ain't nothing arguably more important than a man's sex appeal for casual sex. Now, for marriage and long-term relationships, but for casual sex, it's not arguably anything more important than a man's sex appeal. Criteria category and ideal preference category number three is simply your age. Your age. Plain and simple. Do some women perceive you as being too young for them? Do some women perceive you as being too old for them? Because the reality is not all women are going to choose to date somebody who's significantly older than them or significantly younger than them. Some women will. I've dated women that were older than me. Like me. I've dated some women that were older than me, like in terms of age difference, older than me. My oldest age difference older than me was 22 years. 22 years. That happened when I was in my 20s. When I was 25, I had a fuck buddy that was 47. When I was 25, I had a fuck buddy that was 47. And when I was 27, I had a fuck buddy that was 49. So that's the two oldest women I've dated in terms of age difference older than me. Was, I had one fuck buddy when I was 25, she was 47. And another when I was 27, she was 49, which both would measure up to a difference of 22 years older than me. Younger than me, my youngest age difference was actually just a couple years ago when I was at the 21 convention in Orlando, Florida in 2017. I was 54 and I had sex with a woman that was 22 years old. That was 22. So you're talking about age difference of 32 years. That's my largest, youngest difference. My largest, youngest difference was 32 years old. My second was, I think, I want to say it was 29 years difference younger. My second youngest was 29. I had sex with a woman that was 29 years younger than me. 29 years younger than me. But I've met women when I was young that would tell me, you too young for me. I don't want to mess around with you because you too young for me. And I've had other women since I've been older that have said, you too old for me. You too old for me. Criteria and ideal preference category number four. Number four. Your race, ethnicity, or cultural and or religious background. Your race, ethnicity, or cultural and or religious background. Some women simply will not date a man who is of a different race or ethnicity than them. They're real hard line about that. Some women are lenient about that. Some women are real hard line about that. And similarly, some women will not date a man who possesses a different religious and or cultural background than themselves. For example, some women, if they're a Christian, they won't date a non-Christian. If they're a Muslim, they won't date a non-Muslim. They're Buddhist, they won't date a non-Buddhist, and so on and so on. If they Baptist, they won't date a non-Baptist. If they Catholic, they won't date a non-Catholic. Category number five. Category number five. Your degree of intelligence and or formal education. Your degree of intelligence and or formal education. Some women will only date men who have approximately the same level of natural intelligence, aka your IQ, as them, or they will only date guys who got the same level of formal academic education as them. For example, if they have a PhD, they'll only date a guy who got a PhD. If they got a master's degree, they'll only date guys with a master's degree. If they got a bachelor's degree, they only date with guys who got a bachelor's degree or higher. I know quite a few women like that. Yeah, matter of fact, I got at least two cousins like that. I got a cousin. She lives in Atlanta. She told me that years ago. Because she has a PhD, and she said she would never date a guy who doesn't have either a PhD, a JD, or MD. I remember she told me that when I was in my early 30s. Yeah, she said she would never date a guy that doesn't have either a PhD, a JD, or an MD. And sure enough, her husband, that she's been married to since 1994, he has a JD. He's an attorney. But Yeah, I know quite a few college-educated women. They won't date a guy who has a lower level of formal education than them. Or some women, it's not so much about their level of education, but just their natural intelligence. Like, I've heard some women, they'll say, I'm not going to date a guy that's an airhead. If he's just like a dumb jock type, airhead type dude, I ain't going to fuck around with him. Criteria category number 6. Criteria category number 6. Your degree of career success, wealth or net worth, social status / fame or notoriety. Some women will only want to date men who they perceive to be highly successful in their careers, men who they perceive to be financially stable and very self-sufficient, or more preferably very wealthy with a high net worth, and or at minimum, men who they perceive to be extremely popular, famous, or highly respected in society. I'll go into more detail on that in the Patreon exclusive portion. And finally, criteria category number 7. Criteria category number 7, and I'm going to tell you, as you know, I've always said I have a certain area of expertise. You know, just like physicians, some physicians have their certain specialties. As a dating coach, criteria category number 7 is what I would call my number 1 area of expertise, or my number 1 specialty. And that would be your overall conversation skills, or what is also known as your mouthpiece. This represents your ability to verbally communicate your thoughts, opinions, desires, interests, and intentions to women in a manner that is enlightening, entertaining, provocative, and it causes you to hold on to a woman's full and undivided attention. This also represents the degree of personal charisma you possess, the degree of persuasive charm you possess, and your degree of seductive and hypnotic influence you display while in conversation with a woman. Speaking of that, during my Patreon live stream on Thursday afternoon, I had some guys both asking me if I was going to ever write and publish another book, and then they offered suggestions. And the main 2 suggestions was, they said, Alan, if you do choose to write another book, I don't have any plans right now, but they said it should be about 1 or 2 things, if not both. Either about BDSM and polyamory, or it should be about your talent for what's known as conversational hypnosis. Conversational hypnosis, which I do. I don't have formal training in conversational hypnosis, but I know all the fundamental basics of conversational hypnosis. Yeah. I in simple terms, I actually do know how to hypnotize a woman while I'm talking to her. Yeah. If people know about my career in the entertainment industry as a screenwriter, if people know about my career in the entertainment industry as a screenwriter, they would know that one of my most popular scripts that I pitched to Hollywood studio executives was called Hypnotized. Yeah. But, and if you're familiar with verbal seduction story number 1, you'll know that during that triple date, one of my friends who I was on a triple date with asked me had I been trained in conversational hypnosis, because he felt like the woman that I fucked that night, that I had her in a hypnotic trance. Yeah, I've actually had a lot of women that have told me that over the years. They said, Alan, I felt like when you just got me to have sex with you, or in some cases it might have been phone sex, they would either say very seriously or more lightheartedly, they say, God, I almost feel like you hypnotized me. Like Dracula used to hypnotize women in those old Dracula movies. I feel like you hypnotized me. I'll tell you in simple terms what hypnotism is without going into detail. We all operate on a combination of our conscious mind and our subconscious mind. At any given moment in time, you have 2 aspects of your mind that are dictating your behavior: your conscious mind and your subconscious mind. Your conscious mind is more of the gatekeeper of your mind, the gatekeeper. Your subconscious mind, it absorbs everything like a sponge. It absorbs everything. And without getting into lengthy academic detail, when you hypnotize somebody, what you're basically doing is you're neutralizing a person's conscious mind, or kind of figuratively speaking, temporarily disabling someone's conscious mind so you can speak to them directly on a subconscious level. You speaking directly to their subconscious mind. That means you're hypnotizing someone. That's what it means to hypnotize someone. It means the process of bypassing someone's conscious mind so that you're giving suggestions, requests, and demands to a person's subconscious mind. Because your subconscious mind, a lot of times, it responds to suggestions, requests, commands, and demands. That's how your subconscious mind works most of, if not all of the time. Anyway, that's the basis of hypnosis. Join me for my Patreon exclusive portion where I'm going to go into at least a little bit more detail on these 7 categories of women's criteria for male companionship and their preferences.